What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Turn the Jets podcast. I'm your host, Will Parkinson, at WillPod11 on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, all 32 Pod, Badlands, TOJ, all the fun stuff. We are recording this on Friday afternoon. We're 3 days into camp. Aaron Rodgers is lighting the place up. He's no longer in Egypt. The Jets offense looks good, and no better person to kind of come on. Connor Hughes, SNY. I almost just said The Athletic. My brain almost just broke.
Yeah.
Connor, how we doing, man? How's the first couple of days of camp treating you?
It's been good, man. It's been good. I will say that this was the first year that I don't think I was overly excited to come back. And I was talking to some people over at the Giants and also the Jets. They're like, "What do you mean?" I was like, "Well, last year my wife had just given birth and we just moved, so being home was like moving into a house with a 2-3 week old. It was a little bit of a grind. So training camp provided an escape from the stresses of that." This year was one where I was going to camp off of like a 30-day vacation. So I was kind of more about, I'd rather be down at the beach a couple more days, kick my feet up, have a few more drinks, stuff like that. So, but I will say now that I'm back, it's been fun. It's always fun. Again, dude, I've said this to people. I grew up a huge fan of the NFL. I love football. So at the end of the day, I don't take my job for granted. So I do love being out here.
Yeah, no, look, it's not the golf course and it's not the beach, but
Yeah.
I want to I'll start with the obvious. I don't want to belabor the point. We got to listen till the end of the episode to hear about Rodgers. Obviously, you tweeted out the stats. Obviously, look, again, it's 3 days of practice. They're ramping up to full pads. There is no full pads. Again, it's practice, but from all accounts, and everyone tweeting about it. Obviously, and you tweeted out a bunch of the stuff. Rodgers he's looked fantastic. The first day, red zone was a little tough, but then the last 2 days, it feels like kind of dream scenario for what this offense could look like. And this is even with Mike Williams and Tyron Smith the rest of the day and all this stuff. What'd you make of what Rodgers has looked like, I guess, so far when we get to the rest of the team?
Yeah, I'm the good luck charm apparently because I wasn't there on day one. I was over at the Giants, so I showed up to the Jets and he's just been ridiculous. I mean, I did a hit for when we recording this Thursday, Friday. I did a hit for Sports Night here on Friday. I was talking to Janelle and I said I've covered training camp practices where the Jets starting quarterback didn't complete 5 passes, and I think I've done it multiple times. Over the last 2 days, Rodgers has 5 incompletions throughout all of practice. I'm not talking about one drill, 7-on-7s, the red zone portion. If he is on the field as the Jets quarterback, he is 23 of 28 with 3 touchdowns. That is absurd. The ball just never hits the ground with this guy. He's surgical. The precision that he throws with, I mean, it's just, he makes it look so easy. And it is just fun watching him play. And I made the comment actually at practice on Friday where the Jets offense looks good. And someone said to me "Oh, didn't you say that at some point last year?" And I don't know. I think last year there was still so much new with Rodgers kind of getting acclimated and stuff like that where he made ridiculous plays. He made good things. Garrett Wilson would shine, but not necessarily this start to finish just dominance from the offense. I mean, I've covered teams where these coaches and all just hide behind the excuse of the defense is always ahead of the offense in practice, or this early in practice. Defense is always ahead. Defense is always ahead. Hell no, man. The offense is ahead of the defense right now, and it's been fun to watch because at the end of the day, like I said, we all enjoy watching good football, and right now this offense is displaying on a pretty consistent basis good football.
Yeah, someone that's, look, I think there was a lot to do with Allen Lazard struggling last year on a lot of different fronts. I think when you're an undrafted guy and you finally get paid, there's a lot that has to just do with that. And there's sometimes that stuff just happens. I think there's a lot of mental stuff. I think once Rodgers went down, I don't know how checked in or checked out he was. That's a conversation for another day. But it seems like he's a guy who if the Jets get anything out of, it'd be really nice. It'd be a huge addition because he is making 10, 11 million bucks. He was a quality third option in a good Packers offense. It's not like he's a terrible football player. He had a terrible year and looked very bad last year. He's had a strong couple of days here. Are you ready to say, oh, Lazard could be a contributor on this team, or is it hey, it's day 3, I'm going to pump the brakes a little until I see it early on during the regular season?
It's been optimistic, and I think actually one of the things that was more optimistic about Lazard than anything else was on Thursday I caught him. He was off the field. The first team offense was off. That's all Lazard works with is the ones right now because Mike Williams is still rehabbing, and Kenny Yeboah was on the sideline. I didn't see what Kenny Yeboah did, but Lazard pulled him aside Lazard work there for 3 or 4 minutes just with Kenny Yeboah working through something, whether it was technique, how he ran a specific route, something like that. Usually when players are mentally checked out, they don't assume that leadership role. They're just done. They're focusing on whatever they're going to do as soon as they leave the building. Lazard looks like he's very checked in. So not only has he had not only has he had an impressive start to these practices where he was making plays. And again, when you're making plays against Sauce Gardner and DJ Reed, that's a legitimate accomplishment. Not only is he making plays on the field, but he seems like he's pretty locked in mentally off the field, where he is making a concerted effort to help his teammates in any way that he can. So I don't necessarily know if I'm ready to say, like, oh, this is the Allen Lazard revenge tour or anything like that. I still think that his ceiling is a pretty good number 3, number 4 wideout. But he certainly looks more checked in and is making more plays than he did at any point last year. And I mean that in OTAs, minicamp, training camp. There were a couple catches that he made where it would be like, oh, he went up high. I mean, he doesn't create that much separation anyway, so a lot of his catches are going to be contested just because he doesn't like the first play of practice on Thursday where Garrett Wilson's by DJ Reed by like 3 yards. Like,
yeah, Lazard's not doing that.
No, he's not even doing that on short route. So like a lot of his stuff is going to be throw it up and let him out body the guy and out rebound him. So they're always going to look impressive, maybe when they shouldn't necessarily have to be so hard. With that said, he's making plays more consistently than he did last year. Also looking like he's stepping up as a leader. I'm sure that helps that his buddy Aaron Rodgers is back in the quarterback and he's having to deal with Wilson.
Yeah. No comment on that one, but
you see what Peyton said today?
That was incredible. 8-second pause.
Yeah, that's not a ringing endorsement, man.
Yeah, there's the Zach clips I've seen thus far are even worse than what I watched for the last 3 years in person, and that's not a compliment. The offensive line's been something, and I think we talk so much about Rodgers, the skill group, the defense, the coaches. Like, I truly feel like the one thing that, and you tweeted this out today, and I'll be at camp Monday, Tuesday, potentially Wednesday and Saturday next week. So I'm like excited to see it in person. Tyron Smith's only practiced 2 days, which again, there's nothing to be worried about there. Like, that's what's going to happen. AVT's first day back today in full. Morgan Moses, I don't think is back yet. I might be mistaken there, but he's back, kind of, not fully invested. Max Mitchell's played some, Carter Warren, etc. Like, this isn't even a full group, and the pockets Rodgers, just the clips I've seen, pockets Rodgers has had have been way different than anything. And again, we'll get to Reddick in a minute, and I know it's early in camp, and I know there's no pads, and we can qualify all that stuff. That said, like, Rodgers didn't have as good of a pocket as he had on that play to Garrett Wilson yesterday at any point last year in any practice that I watched. Not even in a walkthrough, it felt like he was going to get hit, and Mekhi Becton was going to fall start at some point. So, like, are you impressed? Again, just it's an very early, but just in some of the growth of either a Tittman or just with Tyron Smith or Olu, how, like, the fact that we haven't really talked about him, I feel like it's a good thing, because for the last couple of years, every tweet during camp is like, oh, Carl Lawson gets his 28th sack of camp and it's day 3 or whoever it might be.
Yeah, I mean, think about it. I joked about this online the other day, and I said it to Robert too when we were having a press conference with him. Is that my entire career watching the Jets offensive line just be completely inept. I've been told how in these padless practices the defense is always at an advantage. You can't take anything in the practice sucks because the defense is at an advantage. Well, the defense doesn't look like it's at an advantage this year. You know what I mean? And I think a lot of credit should go to Max Mitchell as well, because he's held down the fort on the right side. Olu Fashanu today, when Tyron Smith was out, he held down the fort. The interior of the offensive line looks a lot better. It's only going to get better the more comfortable that Elijah Vera Tucker gets as he knocks off the rust. And John Simpson looks like he's going to be pretty good there at guard. And I will say that the entire offensive line looks collectively significantly better when the ball is getting out of Aaron Rodgers' hand as fast as it is. I mean, Solomon Thomas talked on Friday, and he was asked that, you guys are winning reps. Like, the defensive line is winning reps, and it doesn't matter because the ball is out of Rodgers' hand 7-8 yards down the field, and the player's running for another 5-6 in the first down. So you're winning reps and still getting on first downs. And Thomas laughed, and he basically said, dude, we're going up against prime MJ or Kobe. Like, that's what it is every single practice. So I think the unit is better up front. It is. It's a better offensive line than the Jets have had a while. Better offensive line I've seen in a very, very long time. They need to stay healthy, but as long as they were healthy, and then you add in the Rodgers factor of how he's able to move within the pocket, make adjustments at the line, and also just his quick delivery, it's going to look better than what it has in recent years.
I want to finish with two things here. One thing you brought up, usually the defense is ahead of the offense in the beginning of camp. I think I've seen a lot of in my mentions anytime I talk about the offense, hey, the defense, it might not be as good as everyone thinks. Like, they're just like a lot of those comments of there always has, for some reason, people always have to find a negative when there's not really a reason to be negative. Has the defense looked still good? The offense has just been better, or has it been like the defense is like taking a little bit to get going here?
No, the defense doesn't look bad. It's there have been plays, whether it's Garrett Wilson beat DJ Reed, and when you watch the replay, look at his move off the line. Like, what's a corner supposed to do? Like, this isn't like it's
He's
Deontay
beating a prime Revis with that move either.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter.
This isn't Deontay Burnett burning Tremaine Johnson. This isn't Robbie Anderson getting past Buster Screen. These are elite level offensive players getting past elite level defensive players. And there have been plays that the defense gets back. I mean, Rodgers, one of his two incompletions on Friday was a route that he threw from the 12-yard line in the red zone, like a little fade go route to Garrett Wilson on the left side. Sauce had tremendous coverage and batted it away. Now, what Rodgers did was he came back where he came to the line, saw the blitz that was coming from the defense, adjusted, called a play, made a quick route on the outside to Garrett Wilson, who caught it, picked up 6, and then on third down, he came back and found Tyler Conklin over the middle for a touchdown. Like, there's things that Rodgers is doing that you can't defend as a defense. There's players now on this offensive side of the ball, and I know it's an alien concept for Jet fans because it has been an alien concept forever, but you have premier top-tier talent on this team now. Now, they have to stay healthy because I do have questions with their depth, and I do have questions, as we've talked multiple times, about Daniel Hackett and can Rodgers truly share some of the bugaboos that he's going to call on game days. But from a talent perspective, this is as good of a team as I can remember in a very long time. That's why you're seeing the offense have success, because the offense has players capable of having success. Like, they're not handicapped anymore. Like, this is a team with legitimate guys. And Ryan Dunleavy of the New York Post brought this up. Tell me another team that has 10 to 11 all-pro or all-pro potential players on the roster. That's what the Jets have. It's across the board. Elijah Vera Tucker, all-pro potential. Garrett Wilson, Breece Hall, Aaron Rodgers, obviously an MVP. Tyron Smith's been an all-pro. Morgan Moses. Like, it's just an offense. And then you flip it on the defensive side of the ball. Like, maybe I have some concerns with their ability to stop the run, but that's a lot of teams in the NFL. And honestly, I am not worried about the defense at all. I don't know if they're necessarily going to be like a top 3 unit, but they're not going to be a defense that's so bad that it's costing the Jets games. Like, truly, I don't believe it.
Yeah, no, I wanted to get to Reddick quickly and then just finish with one other thing. Reddick, look, you've done a lot of reporting on it, and there's been a lot kind of that's floated the last 4 days. I am of the belief that this, like, Jets practice tomorrow, there's an off day Sunday, full pads Monday. I feel like it comes to a head this weekend where it's like there's an off day. Maybe we'll see, but like I feel like that's like that would be a window for which to get it done. Like, in my opinion, of like it's done. Is that being overly optimistic here? Because I just feel like the accrued season thing, I keep getting in my mentions. Hassan Reddick doesn't give a fuck. He's in year 8. It's not. He's going to play longer than 2 years. It doesn't matter. This isn't a Brandon Ayuk situation where like, hey, if you don't show up, you're going to lose the season of free agency. And I get from where the Jets are coming from. I also get where Reddick's coming from. Like, I pointed this out yesterday. Top 5 pass rushers for sacks the last 5 years. Look at his number versus everybody else. Even Trey Hendrickson's making $7 or $8 million more than him. Does this just end in fully guarantee the deal? Which, again, semantics. He had $5 or $6 million in incentives, and he plays a clear max number, or is it like we're not anywhere close to a solution here?
I don't know, because the Jets are saying that they refuse to negotiate anything, including the contract restructure, until he's here and performs in practice. So he needs to be here, show up, show he's committed, and then they'll talk about redoing his deal. Reddick is basically saying, go F yourself. If you want to see me perform, turn on the game film for the last 4 years and you can see me perform. Give me my contract now, and it's a game of chicken who's going to play first. I think that the Jets may have been more to do this. Like, in their mindset, they were saying, look, show up, OTAs, mini camp, you're here. By the time we get to training camp, we'll rework your contract. Not a redone contract. That he had to do it in the regular season for the Jets in order for them to do that. But they do the rework contract with some more guarantees and incentives and stuff as long as he was here. He didn't show up. So the Jets are like, you told us you were going to be here. You're not. Come here and do what you would have done in OTAs and minicamp, then we'll talk about a new deal. Now, in my opinion, I can see where both sides are right. Like, if you're Hassan Reddick, like, dude, a couple years ago, you were getting Defensive Player of the Year votes. Like, you're not 35. Like, you're still a pretty top-tier edge rusher. From him, I get it. He's like, show you in camp. What the hell I need to show you in camp for? I've got my entire career to show you what I can do when I'm on the field. And from the Jets' perspective, they're saying, screw you. You lied to us. Get in here. So I think it's teetering on getting ugly. And I think what makes it more risky to get ugly is that Hassan Reddick has absolutely no connection to this fan base. He has absolutely no connection to this team. He's been in the Jets facility for all of 2 or 3 hours when he took his physical and met with some coaches. Like, usually when players end up reporting, like Tua, right? Or I know he just started practicing, but even Jamar Chase, like, where he's sitting out doing the holding, like, he has a connection to the fan base. He has a connection to the organization where it's more like, all right, I'll show up. Let's figure this out. There is no connection between Hassan Reddick and the Jets. None. Like, his only connection right now is the Jets telling their side of the story and basically painting him as the, like, I could see this getting ugly where I don't necessarily see a quick resolution unless the Jets break on what they're saying. And from everyone I've talked to, it doesn't sound like they were willing to do it at least earlier this week. So I don't know if 1 week's actually changed. I think they're basically saying, go ahead, report whenever you want to report. We're going to find you every day.
Yeah, look, I think it's very rare. I think this is one of those situations that is rare because usually holdouts happen. The Jets have been a part of a bunch. The Jets have always caved with Revis and Fitz and all these different guys. They were on the Jets, right? Like, they were already on the team where Trent Williams is holding out. Trent Williams has been on the Niners for, 6 years now? Like, it's just very rare for a guy to hold out at this level. That's why, again, this should have been done a long time ago from whatever side you want to take on that. Last kind of question here, I guess, is, and I also think Woody wants to see them win games before he starts giving out more cash. Like, that's just the reality of the situation. Yes. That has been the situation all offseason, and it's going to continue to be that. I think you hit
the nail on the head with that, yes. I think that is spot on what you just said.
Last kind of thing here. Is there anything that you want to, like, obviously during camp, you mentioned it there. The biggest things are health. There's a super talented roster. We've already seen Rodgers. He's come back and looked healthy. So, like, there's not really much I feel like you need to see from Rodgers. Even yesterday, moving around, the throw to Breece Hall, et cetera. Is there one or two things or one thing specific you're kind of keeping your eye on between now and maybe that first joint practice? Is, like, there one thing, like, I want to see this during, practice to feel good about this position group or anything like that? Or does it come down for you, like, until I see it week 1 in San Fran, like, I'm not going to change my opinion on this team too much?
This is the first time I have ever said this out loud. Aside from injuries, that's obvious, right? Like, and you need to see guys be healthy, yada, yada, yada. I have zero concern with the offense. None. I have none. As long as they're healthy, I have no concern with them. Like, now, and I'm honestly, like, if they lose Tyron Smith, I think they can probably still withstand that because they have all of them. Now, if you're talking about they're losing Smith, Farrah Tucker, and Morgan Moses in and out, only 50% because he's dealing with the shoulder, got another problem. But as long as they're healthy, I have no issue with the offense. I want to see when the pads go on, can they consistently get a pass rush? I do want to see that. That is my.
Yeah, you want Reddick wants leverage. The offense, there's your leverage.
Yeah, because you're relying and banking a lot on Will McDonald taking a step forward when there was very little to give you any sign that Will McDonald was going to take a step forward. It's very rare that you have a first round pick that's a healthy scratch on game days. That's a damning indictment on him as a player. At that point in time, again, he can develop, he can put weight on. But even, like, I remember talking to people in the building that were like, we need him to gain weight. We've talked to Robert Saleh and Ulbrich about how much weight has Will McDonald gained, and they've danced around the question, which tells me that he has not gained the weight that they wanted him to gain. Losing Bryce Huff, that's a big blow. You lost Carl Lawson, who you relied on. You lost John Franklin Myers, who was a big presence on the inside. Jermaine Johnson, I'm not worried about, but you need to see Will take a step forward. You need to see Kinlaw being able to create pressure from the middle. You know what you get in Quinnen, but, like, you still, this defense is predicated on we can get pressure with just our front four, and then we can go back and play in the secondary. I need to see that front four create a rush, because if I have an issue with the defense at the moment, it's that I haven't seen it so far. These first two, I've only been at two of the three. Two of those three, I haven't seen them create much push and create much pressure. So when these pads come on and it's really not cutting time, I mean, that's where I want to see this defense get after it a little bit. I'm not worried about the secondary. I think Tony Adams is good. I think Chuck Clark is fine. I think even you could have bad safeties back there, and with those three corners they got, they'll make them look significantly better. My concern is with that pass rush, and do they have enough without Bryce and John? And if they do, if they have Hassan, 100% agree that they do have Hassan. But if this Hassan thing drags out, do they have enough? And I got to see it, because I'm not overly optimistic on Will McDonald until I see it from him.
Yeah, no, look, I think that's the one thing that when the Jets traded JFM, they gave Reddick some leverage here, and
Yeah.
the issue is like this defense I think is really good without Reddick. I think with Reddick you're adding a premier top 7 or 8 edge rusher.
Yep.
Then it's a very different conversation, and you let Will McDonald kind of be a new kind of version.
Yep.
Did you see Vic Fangio already making enemies of Bryce Huff, saying he's got to learn to be a 3-down player? It's like Fangio. I don't know, man. He just might be 10 years past the present day NFL. I know you're going, it's interesting. Then the Eagles have a group chat about accountability. Probably the corniest thing I think I've ever seen. Not shocking because A.J. Brown, Jalen Hurts, and Devin White are dudes who speak in quotes primarily. You're obviously going off to see Deadpool here. Are you excited? What's your excitement level for this?
Oh, it's like a 40 out of 10, maybe 100 out of 10. Like I told my wife, I've been counting down the days for this movie until Ryan Reynolds sent that tweet out with Hugh Jackman walking up the stairs saying, "Sure, I'll come back and play as well." I mean, Wolverine is my favorite superhero of all time. Like I used to dress up as him when I was like a 3-year-old. Like my mom tells the story all the time that she had to hide the Wolverine costume I got for Halloween because I would just wear it every single day. So Hugh Jackman brought my childhood to life, and now to see him back playing the character again, I can't wait. So I'm literally running out of here and going right there.
Last question quickly. NCAA. I know you're a huge Madden guy.
Don't have it yet.
Dude,
I gotta get it.
25 times better than any Madden that's been released in the last decade. I will let you run here. I will see you on Monday. Make sure you guys just tune in. Seth Bradley from One Jets Drive will be on talking a little bit of what the Jets have going on. Connor, appreciate your time and enjoy the movie, man.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me on.
An exciting interview with Connor Hughes. We're moving into some really fun stuff going on at One Jets Drive with director of One Jets Drive, Origins, and a bunch of other different things going on. Seth Bradley. Seth, how are we doing today, man?
How you doing, Will? Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you taking some time. Obviously, it's an exciting time of year. We've got training camp a couple days underway. Aaron Rodgers back in the fold. Super Bowl aspirations, the whole 9 yards, and one thing that's gotten, I think, everybody through the fan base through the last couple of years, which have kind of been up and down, some down, obviously, has been kind of One Jets Drive, some of the things like Origins, which you guys have coming out, which I'll let you kind of get into. Has that always kind of been rewarding for you? And are you just focused on football right now and be like, hey, the more we win, the more good content we can kind of put out?
I've been fortunate to work for the Jets for 10 years. So it's been really cool to kind of see the growth and what we've been able to do from a documentary and storytelling standpoint. We've been fortunate to be able to do One Jets Drive now. This is our 7th season coming up. And we've kind of been able to build 1GD Films off of that with some really cool series like Flight, which covers the story of the offseason, free agency, and the draft. And now launching, a new series called Origins, which really dives deep into players' backstories. I think, when you look at a series like this, it really gives the fans a cool inside look at how some of their favorite players got to the NFL and the sacrifice and the struggle it takes and the people that supported them along the way and the coaches and things like that. So really just, what we're trying to offer fans is a full-fledged look at the team from the off season through the end of the season. And then really, telling the stories of the different players and the people that make, this organization so great. It's a very rewarding job. We have a great team of people and really it's the investment of the organization when it comes to this stuff that makes it cool. And, I think getting to know the fan base and really kind of getting to know the people within the walls here at One Just Drive has been really cool for me.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. I think last year was an interesting balance of Hard Knocks and One Jets Drive and the whole 9 yards, and the balance of, what that entailed, obviously. And I think, again, like I said, I think the fan base looks forward to a lot of the content kind of made in-house, from a Jets perspective. What's something, I guess, from this new series kind of coming out? Obviously, I believe 2 episodes have come out. I think Garrett and Jermaine, I know the Jeremy Ruckert one, I believe, come out as well. I'm sure there's going to be more after that. What's maybe one thing from a couple of these different, each individual players that kind of stood out to you while making it? Was there something you either learned about some of these guys or I obviously don't want to spoil too much. I want people to obviously watch it and things like that. But is there something that either you stood out to you or, hey, man, this really just affirmed kind of what I've seen the last couple of years from these guys or something like that?
I definitely think it's the stories that people don't know that you're going to see in this series. When we went back in December and January and really started kind of planning how we were going to do this and which players we were going to tell their story, I think it was just a really cool opportunity to show the story that you don't know. And, so I think, we wanted to do these 5 documentary films. Jermaine and Garrett, have both been released in the last week. DJ Reed, his story comes out on Sunday, which honestly, it might be the most incredible story of overcoming adversity I've ever heard. I think when people look at his journey, and I don't want to spoil it, I would, want people to watch it on our YouTube channel, but, I think, the different obstacles he had to overcome, even just to get into junior college. And then, the stories of tragedy and triumph, of a player like that to make it to the NFL and succeed. He's undersized, he's under recruited. I think it's a true underdog story, and to see somebody thriving as one of the game's best cornerbacks, I think that was a really rewarding story to tell. Quincy Williams, I think people think the Williams brothers, and you probably think Quinnen, because he's been with the Jets now since 2019, the 3rd overall pick. And Quincy's story is very unique. They both are kind of tied to each other, but, I think nobody really knows how much he was in Quinnen's shadow until you watch his story, because they were in the same draft together. And when you kind of see this story come to fruition, wasn't invited to the combine. Nobody knew who he was. They didn't even know that Quinnen was his younger brother. And it's one of those stories where I think, to see a guy like that rise up to become, an all-pro player with his brother being in the NFL, being a superstar player himself. And Quinnen's story also will come out through this episode as well. But, I think it's a story fans will really engage with and really want to hear. And then Jeremy Rucker was a no-brainer for us. I think, the hometown kid from Long Island who their family is just diehard Jets fans, as diehard as it gets. And for a kid like that to get drafted by the Jets, and see his dream realized, it was one of those unique opportunities for us to tell that story, full blown. And I think that's really cool. And when you look at a guy like Garrett, I think the interesting thing when we were producing that episode and getting to meet his family and things like that, you see here's, a guy on the cusp of superstardom, and he already is a star with the Jets, but he was raised so well. His parents are such a strong foundation. The coaches that coached him, and he's just wired the right way for this market and this fan base to really explode and become, one of the best receivers in the NFL. And then with Jermaine, it was, I think, the unique story about him is, going to Last Chance U Independence Community College in Kansas. It was, that was kind of our pie in the sky idea when we initially thought of the series, was getting Jermaine to go back to Independence and kind of tell that story and get him on site in Kansas, which it's not an easy place to get to, from New Jersey, but he was all in. He really wanted to go back. It was the first time he had been back since he had been there. And, I think, seeing a guy kind of overcome those obstacles in his own right, going to Georgia, then transferring to Florida State, and ultimately becoming a 1st-round pick. And I think Jermaine still, some of these guys like Jermaine and DJ, I think still have a huge chip on their shoulder. They want to continue to show the world who they are as players. So, I think it was just 5 really unique stories. These are full-fledged documentary films on each guy. So, if you sit down to watch this, it's no different than watching, a doc series on any other streaming platform. You're going to get a 45-minute episode where you're going to get to know their family, you're going to get to know their coaches, and really just kind of like the legendary stories of what they were in high school. Like Jeremy Rucker's high school film is some of the most impressive I've ever seen. He was a kicker, he played defense, amazing receiver, and kind of like seeing that unfold, how good he was really cool for us.
Yeah, look, I think I'm looking forward to watching it. I know there's a couple this weekend I'm going to dive into, as well as, obviously the ones you mentioned. Now that I'm living in Long Island, obviously it's pretty interesting, with the Jeremy Rucker thing and just kind of how popular he is. And you see Jeremy Rucker jerseys. It was in I was down by the Badlands, Farmingdale, Lindenhurst area, and like at a bar and there's a bunch of people in Jeremy Rucker jerseys on a Sunday. I was like, oh, this is pretty cool, man. Like, this is pretty awesome. Obviously, just want to hit on a couple things here before, obviously, we let you, enjoy the rest of your day, because training camp is a grind, not just for the players, but for everybody in the building. One Jets Drive is something that, obviously I think everyone's excited for again this year. The episode last year, obviously, week one, there were so many emotions, I think, not just from the highs and lows of that game, but that you guys captured, really well before, in the tunnel. Rodgers even talked about it. He wasn't even going to take out the American flag. Then he saw everybody take it out. He ends up going out with it, and it created this amazing moment. And then obviously, after the game, there's clips on the sideline of, Quinn and these guys talking, and the lights go out in the stadium, and the flashing green, all that stuff. Like, was that one of your favorite, things you guys have done? Just because that episode was like a true Hollywood movie. Like, you could not have scripted what happened, on 9/11 last year.
Yeah, I would say that episode was probably the biggest challenge we've ever had to overcome, from producing and editing and telling the story. And it was really just, we're fans just like you guys. We live and breathe this thing. We're a part of the team here. And, I think going into that game, I don't think, I've ever been more excited to be in a stadium. I think you could feel it in the fans, you could feel it in the parking lots outside. And just that build up to Aaron running out of the tunnel was one of those things, like, I'll never forget, as long as I live. It was just one of those things where it's like, I don't think you could ever dream of that situation. I think for so long too, you were waiting for the debut of Aaron. So you were kind of like, this is just anticipation of what's really going to happen. So I think, like, when I look back at that episode, and, I tell this story all the time, when I'm in the tunnel behind Garrett and Aaron embracing, like, prior to the run out, and thinking about, man, like, this team's really going to be special. Like, these two guys, like, what this season is going to be, like, this is so cool. And then when the injury happened, my mind immediately went to, like, how powerful that shot was. Now, like, when people are going to see this shot, they're going to say, man, like, that really hits hard, because it was just one of those things where the emotions were running so high. Like, I've never been in an atmosphere where the air came out of the stadium so quickly, and you kind of just were really feeling that. But the story behind that episode is, we were going to put out an episode 3 days after that game. So it's a Monday night game, and we're going to come in on Tuesday, and, our amazing crew, we're going to sit down, and we're going to put together this story of this game. And, you think, like, it's a big Jets win, like, obviously, emotions are high, and this is one of the best games I've ever been to. But it was a really challenging story to tell, because I think of everyone knew, like, what happened, at the end of the game. Like, you could even feel in the locker room. It's like, we win the game. It's one of the most incredible finishes, you're ever going to see. But, like, there's still that part of it that's like, man, like, what could have been, like, what is this season going to look like now, and everything like that. And it was just one of those things where it was such a rewarding thing to kind of be able to see that episode come together, because I think it challenged our crew in a way that you really couldn't imagine. But I think, it shows, like, how much this team means to this fan base and things like that. When I think of, I've been fortunate to meet, so many fans over the years, and, our crew interacts with so many, we tell the story of the fans as much as anything, and what this team means to this city, and what they've been through, and the adversity and everything like that. And it was just a really hard episode to tell, but it was one of those things where I think, like, when you look back on it years from now, I still think, it's going to be a special one where people can say, like, man, like, I was at MetLife that night. Like, I remember what it was like when Aaron ran out of the tunnel. And I think that's just a moment nobody will ever forget, that was in the stadium that night, or even watching on TV.
Yeah. Last thing before we wrap here, and obviously got to ask you, expectations for this year. You feeling confident? Where are you at mentally? You going to let yourself get wrapped up in Rodgers dominating 3 days in a row here?
I'm always pretty confident. It's cool to see kind of the way Joe has built this team. When you look at some of these guys that he's been able to bring in, like Tyron Smith, an incredible defense. Mike Williams is waiting in the wings to come in, and Garrett, obviously looks like he's poised to have just like a massive season, and Brees, and then you see Aaron out there, and I think, like, it's not that the buzz is worn off from last year, but you kind of, like, you have to kind of wrap your head around, like, man, like, we still haven't even seen him, what he's going to do. So And I think there's just such an excitement about that. And, I think, it's exciting, man. I think our crew's always excited. Like we live and breathe this team, and I think like people should feel that when they watch our episodes. I hope people subscribe to our YouTube channel to check everything out. It's going to be a fun season. We'll be there to document it all. And, it's going to be a good one. I have a feeling.
Yeah, appreciate you taking some time. Again, make sure you guys are tuned in to Origins. There'll be another episode dropping Sunday. 2 are out so far in Jermaine and Garrett, DJ Reed, Jeremy Ruckert, Quincy Williams. Obviously, subscribe, to the Jets YouTube channel. Make sure you guys are checking out what Seth and his team are doing. But Seth, we appreciate it, and we'll do it again soon.
Thanks so much, Will. We really appreciate it, man. Have a great one.